Okay, hello and welcome to another episode of Hiring and Inspiring. Today's guest is Ra'id Ahmad, who is a connection of mine initially from LinkedIn. He's a fellow, expat, I guess, lives in Melbourne as well. He works as the senior talent recruitment partner for an IT and tech company, NTT Group. And I'm looking forward to having a chat to him today, connecting him a bit more, find out more what he's been up to, and just for him to share a bit of wisdom, perhaps. So, right, with that introduction, welcome to the show. How are you getting on?
Good, my brother. I appreciate you having me after a little back and forward and trying to connect, but this is a great way to do it for sure.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on, mate. So, if we kick it off, if we start in the present, your current role, what you're doing at the moment, you work in talent acquisition for a tech company. Just tell me a bit about what you're doing at the moment for those guys.
So some people get confused because obviously talent acquisition sometimes has an HR function. So I'm just recruitment. So I'm a team lead
Yeah,
for Victoria, Perth, and Adelaide. So for our role, we just do the recruitment side of things, and then after, obviously, find a candidate, interviews, blah blah blah, then we kick it over to HR.
yeah,
So
okay.
we do one slither of the full recruitment process. It's a bit of an interesting mix here at NTT because again, there's us, and then there's also HR too.
So your role is mainly the recruitment, i.e., the screening of the candidate, sourcing,
Yep.
interviewing, um, finding the candidate, and then the HR do the sort of back end. Is that right? The
HR
admin,
does
the
like
process.
obviously all the admin stuff, sending out the letter of offer,
Yeah.
all the rest of that good stuff.
And what type of roles are you typically working on them?
So NTT, we do everything across infrastructure. Well, I do
Okay.
infrastructure. So I have a team. So my team looks, there's NTTAU, which is the old Dimension Data. I'm not sure if you heard of them.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
used to be a South African company. And then there's the NTT Data, and then they do all of the digital side of the businesses. So that can be CRM, Dynamics, developers, BAs, but then on the other side, it's infrastructure. So there's PMs, network engineers, security engineers, all the way up to architects. So that's where my bread and butter is. I originally
Yeah.
started in the infrastructure side and then, yeah, transitioned into this company, but then transitioned into looking after a full team that does everything.
So you're managing people in the role as well.
Yeah, managing and delivering.
Yeah.
It's a bit of
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
mixed bag.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's good.
How big's your team? How many people are you managing?
Oh, I think I lost you there.
Sorry, man.
You good?
How big's your team?
Uh,
Yeah.
so the team is two, three, five, six people.
Yeah.
Six
Yeah.
people
Cool.
across, and again, we look after here, WA, and in Adelaide, and then also too, it's actually separated because there's contract and perm. So there's a team that look after perm, and then there's a team that look after contracting. The the setup here is pretty interesting. So most people that want to get out of agency, you come into this role and you still have an agency style vibe because it's
Okay.
because we get bonuses too on because we're
Okay.
strictly just delivery, right? So if you go to
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
place like PwC or any of the bigger guys, you just purely talent acquisition and you just kind of turn and turn and turn. You probably work a little bit harder, but you're not getting the
Mm,
paid for it. Here, you're incentivized for every placement, which I like. So the harder I work,
yeah.
the more opportunity I can still make money, even if I'm not in an agency. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
Gotcha.
different style.
Yeah. Gotcha. So what's the current state of the tech industry? Because there's a lot of noise about, I don't know, there's lots happening, cuts, those kind of things. You're a man that's on the ground in the field. You know the
Mm.
market better than me. What's happening at the moment? What can you tell me?
um, yeah, obviously it's really shaky at the moment. I have
Mm,
a bunch of friends that got made redundant at Amazon. So you think of all the big tech giants, they're
yeah.
hacking people left, right, and center. And the weird thing about it is that they're they're starting a lot with talent acquisition and sales, which is a bit funny because once the business starts turning over again, they're going to need talent acquisition and salespeople. But what
Right.
they're doing is they're hacking those people because again, at the end of their financial year, you look at budgeting, they're doing a massive sell cost. So then, if they're going to be in the red, they're letting go of, thousands of people. By the end of the next financial year, it may look a little green. The beautiful thing about a company like us, not necessarily, like we're still, to be straightforward with you, we're still struggling a little bit, but we're a systems integrator.
Yeah.
So a lot of the clients, a lot of the companies that are letting a lot of people go, they're the end client. So they're on the end user side, while a company like us, the likes of DXC, Wipro, those guys, they're going out and chasing work and then billing a lot of the end clients. Now, companies like PwC and Accenture, they're a consulting company, but they charge clients so much that therefore they have to let like contractors go because they're giving people $1,200, $1,300 a day, and they're not getting as much work. So then they can't bill
Mm.
an end client. So yeah, tech is definitely at an interesting
Mm.
spot at the moment. So
But you guys are still hiring, still growing by the sound of things.
yeah, well, I guess in the beginning of the financial year, there was a hiring freeze. That's every company.
Okay.
Between December and February, there's always going to be, you're in recruitment too, right? So during
Mm.
those times, no one's really hiring. Um, but even during COVID, my company didn't make any redundancies. We didn't let people go by the boatload. So, man,
Mm.
NTT has really been taking care of the company,
Yeah.
and the employees. But I mean, obviously, there's always going to be that term, people that's going to leave, people that's going to take redundancies anyway. But they didn't let people go because of, let's say, COVID, or because of,
Yeah.
even our working hours didn't even get cut during that time, where a lot of, like, let's say, agencies or other companies were cutting people to 4 days a week. We
Yeah.
were we were business as usual.
Great to hear, man. That's yeah,
Yeah,
awesome.
man.
So, just going back to your role, then, what would you say at the moment, current market? How would you say what's maybe the biggest challenge you're facing?
I would say 6 months to a year ago, it was everyone was getting massive salaries.
Yeah.
And then obviously it was like just really competitive. Now, man, that's actually a good question for now. Because I don't think it's like that as bad anymore.
Yeah.
It
So
probably
when you're
depends on.
referring to like last year when the salaries were, so there were some crazy salaries being thrown around, right? You were
Yeah.
saying you were, I guess, referring to it being super competitive for candidates then?
Mm. So let's say a candidate that usually only, he looks like a 900 a day candidate. They got 1,300 a day in
Mm.
their last role. They got hacked because they're getting too much, and then they're still expecting that 1,300 a day when they're like, maybe you're getting that because they say NAB, which is throwing money around,
Yeah.
but you were also the first one to get hacked too because you were getting so much on a daily rate. Now I don't think it's as bad. I think it's evening out, and then also people are coming back into Australia, so there's more talent coming back to Australia too.
Yeah, it sort of corrected itself, I feel like this year,
Yeah,
where
yeah,
it's
it's
the balance is sort of has leveled
yeah,
itself
yeah,
out a little bit.
yeah, yeah. It's been a good correction.
Mm. So, mate, look, thanks for running through that. If we just go back in time, then, in terms of your background, you did previously work for an external recruitment company, right? So you're now internal doing talent acquisition. You've previously worked external, doing what I do.
Yep.
How was your experience doing that?
Oh, a good lesson
Yeah.
learned. So, my first ever recruitment job, I was working. I won't name any companies just in case I say anything bad and people don't feel some type of way. Um, but yeah, I was working in a 360 role. I didn't have much. prior recruitment experience,
Mm.
but they seen the drive there. So anyone that want to get into recruitment, as long as you have some kind of, motivation and drive to get things done in general, everything else is just learnable.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I always wanted to get into IT because IT was just forever changing. So I got into IT because so my actual degree is sports management. And I came here 2011. I went back home and I was a school teacher, which I wasn't qualified, but my mom worked at the school and she let me become a gym teacher because I played sports or whatever. And one of the the student's dad, he worked in IT. And he's like, man, if you ever want to get into sales, get into IT sales because it's always changing. So then when I came back in 2014, I'm like, yep, I want to get into IT recruitment. And then also too, that was just an opportunity to get my PR. Also, I mean, as you probably know, get
Mm.
into recruitment and getting the opportunity to get your PR. Um, but yeah, I had a bit of a bump in a road because obviously you're working for external, you don't have much experience, you have to grind, 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 and then if you don't kind of produce in a certain amount of time, especially I had the 487 visa, I forgot the working holiday visa. If you don't produce in a certain amount of time, in
Yeah.
recruitment, let's be serious, you're just kind of bumming on the seat sometimes, right? So if you
Mm.
don't produce, you're kind of getting. I only had like 4 months under my belt. Um, man, how in depth do you want me to get in this? Because before, if you want to just kind of go in, so man, before then, I was looking for my first job in Australia, and people think just because you're American or first English your first language, things are just nice and sweet and easy. Well, I got to a point where I had $100 in my bank account and I was interviewing like it was another job. And we all know how job interviews go. Literally had $100 in my bank account. I was so broke that when I got my job, I had to ask, it was a small recruitment company. I had to ask the director to give me money. And then once I actually got paid, to give him back money, to give him the money back
Mm.
that he let me borrow. And one thing in my whole journey is about personal development. That's how I got into doing my side business. Have you heard of a book called The Secret?
No. No.
So, do you read like many personal development books?
Yeah, yeah, I've read a fair few. Yeah.
Well, The Secret is a little bit of fluffy one, but it's one of like an
Okay.
older classic,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
And it talks about, and I wouldn't recommend it because there's plenty other books that's better, but the book was really about visualization.
Okay.
So obviously visualizing things and then, self-manifesting it for it to happen. So while I was, doing these interviews and nothing was happening, I read in the book, it was a part of the book that the lady was talking to another lady and she was saying to the lady, okay, I'm having trouble finding a husband. And the other lady said to her, okay, how are you sleeping in your bed? And she said, oh, I'm taking over the whole bed. Like, it's for me. And she said, how do you expect someone to come into your life if you're taking up all the space? So she's just saying, okay, well, take half of your bed and visualize that someone else is taking up the half of the bed. And she said months after, she ended up finding someone to take up that space because she
Yeah.
was visualizing it happen. So for me, when I moved, because I was in Brisbane first, that didn't work out. Brisbane slow. Shout out to all the Bris Vegas people, but just not right for me. I'm a city boy. When I moved to Sydney, my clothes were packed in my bag. So mentally, my mind was saying, okay, well, if our clothes is packed in my bag, we must be going somewhere else. We must not be
Mm.
staying here. So then after I read that, I'm like, okay, well, how can I apply? And I'm always about you read and you apply. If you don't read and you apply, you're just doing self-help and, you're just doing personal development on steroids.
Mm.
So in order to actually get wisdom, you need to get your knowledge and apply. That's how you get your wisdom. So I was like, okay, how can I apply it to myself? So I was thinking, okay, well, if my mind is saying that my bags are packed, we're leaving. Okay, let me actually take out my clothes, start hanging up, start setting up my room as if I'm going to stay. And this is not even BS. A couple of weeks after that, that's how I got my job. As soon as I changed my mindset, and I was like, you know what? Let me actually act like I'm staying here, then something is going to happen for me. And my whole journey is about like reading, changing my mindset, and then something actually happened. So, so I got the job, and then I got let go in November. In November, and if you're in recruitment, you know, November, December, January is dead news in regards to getting a job,
Mm.
especially in recruitment because we're dealing with clients. So again, I'm like, man, I'm back to ground one. I called my mom. I said, Mom, I call my mom Umi. That means mom in Arabic. I said, Umi, I'm coming home. I'm stressing here. I'm broke as hell again. I'd rather be broke sitting on your couch than being broke in a whole nother country with no, like, foundation or friends. And
Mm.
she said, stay your ass in Australia. There's nothing here for you. And then when she said that, I'm like, you know what? It's done. I need to make it happen. Again, I went back to reading my books because at that time I'm like up and down with my personal development journey. Have you read Seven Habits of Highly Effective People?
Stephen Covey. Yeah, I have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
classic. So every time I'm down and out, I go back to my books.
Okay.
During that period, I interviewed again, not saying the agency, but I hate them now because of this experience. I interviewed with them, had 5 interviews. I'm like, okay, I'm definitely gonna get a job. It didn't happen. They didn't hire me. And I was pissed. I'm like, bro, I'm down and out. What the hell's happening? Went back to reading my books, changed my mindset, got more positive again. So I only had February like 15th in order to get that new visa for the two
Yeah.
year visa, right? But usually companies they don't hire you unless you have 6 months, right? Because they want to try before they buy kind of thing. So okay, work for 6 months. If you're good, then we'll give you that visa. I only had like a month and a half. So this company I would shout out, Launch Recruitment, definitely showed me love because I didn't have that period of time. I
Mm.
interviewed with them, and they're like, you know what, we like you so much, we're just gonna give you the visa.
Wow.
And I'm like, damn, yeah, and that usually doesn't happen because again, you need
Yeah.
some time for it to happen. So yeah, man. So that's a bit of the journey before I came here. But so for me, external has been rough. I did find a good patch, and that's how I ended up
Mm.
here at this current job. But yeah, man, man, like anything, if you grind it out, you stay consistent, you gotta be motivated. For me, I didn't necessarily. My end goal was never, even now, not to be in recruitment. I have a little bit of a bigger goal and dream, but I always wanted to get out of agency recruitment
Yeah.
because I felt like getting into internal was the next step for me because actually I
Yeah.
wanted to get maybe like in project management. And then my mindset shifted again, and I wanted to take more of the entrepreneur route after I met a group of
Mm.
individuals. I was like, okay, maybe that kind of route is a route that kind of aligned
Yeah.
with my values to make a because even after that company is a bunch of ups and downs, but that's a long ass story. But yeah, yeah,
No,
that's
mate, I
kind of how it happened.
appreciate you sharing that journey. Um,
Yeah,
I want to ask about those dreams and the future you have there. But before I do, I
of
think I
course,
want to
yeah,
go back. I want to go back in the past again. So that journey you mentioned about when you were scrapping about and hustling to get that first job, get that make it in Australia initially.
yeah.
What about before that? What about your journey from the US to to Australia? What caused that? What brought about that
Oh,
move?
um, so 2000, it was probably like 2008, 2009. I was in university. I had the opportunity to study abroad, and I was
Hmm.
always speaking because I've always been into like traveling. My dad used to be a they call it journeyman in Australia, or electrician, and you go to different states or you go to different places to like travel. So I've always like seen him going traveling and things. I'm like, oh man, that's pretty awesome. My
Mm.
father passed away. It was pretty hectic. So he passed away, and then that kind of aspiration, I guess I dropped it because my mom, I wanted to be, I'm the youngest of two, and I'm the closest with my mom. So then I'm like, I don't want to go leave my mom and go and study abroad. I just stay home with my mother. And then she said, no, like, I need you again. This she actually pushed me to do something when I wasn't going to do it.
Okay.
She said, no, I know you and your dad has been talking about you doing this for a long time. Go and do it. Again, it's funny how life happens. I didn't apply. I only had maybe like a week and a half to do the application and stuff like that because I wasn't going to do it. And then I ended up applying, and then it was out of going to the UK or Australia. I thought the
Hmm.
UK was too similar um, to States. And no offense, I was like, UK. I mean, we got New York City here, so. Um, and then I was like, oh, I'll go to Australia. Didn't really know much. Americans back then didn't know nothing much about Australia, but I had a friend who was in Queensland. So then I had an opportunity. I was like, okay, where do you think? Because you know my personality from high school, went to high school. I was like, what do you think I'll be good at? She was like, either Melbourne or Sydney. Tried to apply for Melbourne. They was like, bro, you're not taking your dumb ass. My grades wasn't good enough. So I was like, oh shit, well I guess I'm going to Sydney.
Mm.
So came to Sydney 2011, loved it. I had, dreams and goals of, being in sports management, working, because, I'm from New Jersey, so you got all types of teams in the tri-state area. But when I came to Australia, and everyone again was about like, yeah, I traveled here, I traveled there, and none of my friends were into traveling. Everyone back in the States were just clubbing and popping bottles and trying to afford cars that they can't afford. I was like, man, this lifestyle here seems a lot aligned to what I want to do. So when I went back
Okay.
home, I was like, man, literally when I went back home, I told everyone, I'm moving back to Australia. I'm moving back to Australia. And it didn't happen for 3 years. So again, that
Yeah.
was another life lesson for me. It's like, man, sometimes if people don't believe in your dreams and goals, you just keep it to yourself and you just keep on grinding into them. And this is how I kind of got into personal development. So before then, I actually had something called Lyme disease. Do you know what that is?
No,
It's
I've
like
heard
a,
of it. I don't know about it though.
so it's not as common in like Australia, the UK. It's very common in
Mm.
America. It's like when you get a
Okay.
tick bite and then you end up
Right.
getting chronic fatigue syndrome and you get like really
Okay.
tired and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that happened before I came, but when I came back, my brother, he's like my original mentor. He's the one that got me into books. He was seeing that I was kind of not as focused, not working out as much, and seeming down and out. And he gave me this. The first book he gave me is Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And he's like, bro, I don't know what's going on with you, but you need to work on your mindset. And then I
Okay.
just started working on my mindset. And then from there, it's like other books. And I was like, okay, that's how I started getting into visualizing. So every night, again, this is no BS, every night I went to bed, I was thinking about moving back to Australia, moving back to Australia, moving back to Australia. And the money in the States, kind of like the UK, man, the money is trash. To be straightforward, you have a decent job, but they're not paying you as well. And it was a
Hmm.
little bit tough to pay rent and try to save up money. But I was visualizing. And then January 2013, I booked a one-way ticket to Australia and never came back.
Nice. And
So
the rest is history.
the rest is history from there,
Yeah.
bro. So even if I had to come back, I didn't have money, so I had to make it
Mm.
happen anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
Nice.
that's a bit of the story of how I
Yeah. Love it.
transitioned from like sports and when I do that into what I'm doing today.
Yeah. Love it. And then, I said I was going to ask about this, the future. Then you mentioned you got some pretty big goals. We touched upon it even before we started recording. You got your own sort of side hustle. Tell me more about that. What kind of dreams? What can I maybe expect from you in the next couple of years? So,
Good question. Leading an army of men. That's my goal.
okay,
And I'll get
explain.
into more of, yeah, I'll get into that. So my goal and aspiration, and I'll give you the longer goal. of building men who stick to the word, building men who are not afraid to have goals and dreams, but actually go after them. Building an army of men who, they're husbands and they want to be great husbands, great leaders within their household. Building an army of men that, don't want to always just rely on the 9 to 5. And if they have goals and dreams and aspirations, it's okay to still have that 9 to 5, but go out instead of, going on Netflix, going out partying and drinking, go out and using that time to go out and hustle for yourself. So tailing it back a little bit, um, I'm part of a group of men, and we call ourselves the Band of Brothers. You probably know of that show. Part of
Mm.
a group of men, so we all get mentored on building an e-commerce business. So actually, again,
Okay.
my goal when I came here was to build within NTT, but my values didn't align to the and if people from NTT, everyone knows about my dreams to go, so it's all right. So I was networking with senior managers, directors, and I was actually on the journey of trying to figure out what I want to do. Because when I came to Melbourne, I didn't know anyone. Because I
Yeah.
came to Melbourne to kind of have a restart. I was partying and doing all that stuff in Sydney. I needed to get away from that environment to actually know, like, okay, I'm 29 years old. I'm about to get into the 30s. What's that next step look like?
Yeah.
And no one's actually lifestyle agreed or aligned with my values. I'm a family man. I love family. Of course, I'm from the States, so again, I wanted flexibility. I wanted time and freedom. I ended up getting introduced to a man. Not only he valued family and time with his daughter, because now I have a daughter, funny enough, but also too is he was financially independent. He used to be a lawyer, and he used to be a high scale lawyer in the corporate world, and he kind of shifted his mindset on things. So then I just started to do the same. So my goal is within the next 5 years to step out of IT and completely just build our e-commerce business with a group of young men that are in different industries, but we're all trying to grind and have bigger goals together. But again, I just want I want my flexibility. I want to be able to go to the States, visit my family when I want to. I have a daughter that's 2.5 years old. I want to be able to, and she's very energetic. So I actually freed up my wife. She used to be a child psychiatric nurse, and now she's a full-time mom. She's also helping me build this business. And I just every day she sends me videos of things that she's doing with my daughter. I'm like, man, I want to do the same thing. Because today, now in particular, this is just my values. The world is getting weirder and weirder, man. So I think it's very important that we have values and um, things that we learn. We need to pass it on to our family. So not just the money value of passing over to our family or even impacting other individuals, but also the values that we pass on to others, because
Mm.
that's actually everyone's always talking about generational wealth, generational wealth. I can give $1 million to a few people that's walking across the street and they'll blow it in a few weeks, just like people that have a lottery ticket and they blow it in a few months' time, right? But they don't have the right mindset to be able to keep that wealth, build the wealth, and then send that down to their actual generations because they don't have the mindset that's also being passed
Mm.
down. So that's a bit of a highlight of the bigger goal. But also too, me and my boy, we do like cigar events and networking events. So yeah, I'm dabbling in a lot of things.
That specific e-commerce business, though, what actually is it? What does it do?
So we streamline a supply chain. Like so like drop shipping type of model, but
Hmm.
instead of drop shipping, we use different products in partnership with Harvey Norman, Telstra, different companies that we supply.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, man. Business wise, also, do you know Ray Dalio?
No.
So Ray Dalio is like one of the biggest hedge fund managers in the States.
Okay.
And during COVID, look him up when you get a chance. He's a very smart investor. During COVID, he started investing in businesses like Amazon. Amazon has God knows how many type of products, but everything is
Yeah.
going online, right? So everything's going online. People are starting to shop online a lot more. It's just a smarter. And again, I'm in IT, right? So we're all home. Woolworth started going online. Same transition from hotels to Airbnb,
Mm.
movies and Netflix and stuff like that. So doing something online, I always thought about drop shipping, but again, it's very narrow because you're only using one product. Like someone, excuse my language, someone would sell a dick ring, right?
Okay.
You'd only, someone would only buy that one product once, right? But
Okay.
then you had to do SEO, you had to do marketing and stuff like that. So I wanted to do something that someone's gonna consistently buy.
Okay.
So it was a
Gotcha.
good business model.
Yeah, gotcha. Nice, mate. So you're clearly pretty big on, mindset, personal development, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Say there was someone out there who was maybe listening to this and they go, they're resonating with what you're saying, but they didn't maybe know where to start. You've obviously gone
Mm,
through a real journey with that as well. What would you say, or what recommendations would you give, or even specific books? What would you say to that
mm.
person?
That's a great question because a
Say
lot of people.
say
Yeah.
it's a man, like you touched upon, you want to improve, you want to lead men or whatever you said about,
Mm.
maybe the masculinity situation. What would you say it was a man who wanted to improve their mindset, wanted to improve their life? What would you recommend to them?
Work on their mindset. And this is a general. When you
Mm,
work on your mindset, then your thoughts create action, and then your
mm,
action create results, and then the results therefore create a great habit for you to build off of.
mm,
But none of those things can actually happen. It's like working out, right? Like if you don't consistently want to eat healthy, if you don't consistently go to the gym, if you don't consistently think about like, oh, I want to be a good person, good, healthy, have abs or anything like that, you're not going to actually do the action of doing the work, going to the
mm,
gym. Because when you're down and out and you don't feel like going to the gym, you're just not going to do it. But if you have an actually reason behind it, if you have a dream or goal or something attached to that end result, it's going to actually push you. Like I wake up now and I wake up at 5:30 in the morning. I pray, I read, and then I actually do the workout. I'm by no means like this fit guy, but my goal and dream is to be better fit because I want to
mm,
be fitter for my family. I want to have a long life for my family, for my daughter.
mm,
So yeah, I would start on, being able to just build off your mindset. Either that's reading, that's audio books, that's podcasts, but then also surround yourself around other men or people in general
mm.
that are like-minded like yourself. If I had this type of mindset and I'm still going out, then that's not beneficial, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm saying I want to do one thing, but my actions show otherwise, then I'm looking around saying, okay, why things aren't changing. But again, what I done is I put myself in a situation where I'm always surrounded by men who want to be better husbands, want to be better fathers, that want more out of life. It doesn't even matter what kind of atmosphere, business. Like me and my boy Fabian, we have a cigar event. There's people in real estate. There's people who's
Mm,
brokers. There's people. The mayor of Melbourne showed up and he was at the event. But again, you're just always around people that you're bouncing ideas around, even if it doesn't align business wise to connect in that aspect.
yeah.
You're always around men who are like, yo, let's do this, or let's end up investing into something together. You're in that environment. Then
Mm,
other people are like, yeah, mate, I'm good with my beers on the weekend and my Netflix and then chilling. Like those two don't align. So that's my advice. Work on your mindset and get around other individuals.
yeah. Just create the environment that allows you to have that success or whatever you want, right?
even if
Make it
even
easy
if it's
on
one
yourself.
person, even if it's one person,
Mm,
because that one person then you start having connecting points, and then you have that band of brothers that's all on that same journey and mission to get better.
mm. Yeah, I love it. What about specific books? You mentioned a few that have impacted you. Um, what others maybe can you recommend to
Ooh,
people?
there's one book, if you haven't read it, it's called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill.
No.
That one is so fire, and it's a good
Okay.
punch in the stomach, and it's just really about man, more people fear the fear of failure kills more dreams than failure itself. So why people don't get up and do something because they're in their comfort zone and they fear that something might not work out, or even if they failed in the past, or even some people they've been around with not met, been on the same journey. So they're like, you know what, I'll just sit here and not do anything. But then you, man, what's the retirement age? 60, 65, probably 70 once we get to that age. That fear of going out and do something more, that fear of going and surrounding yourself with more people. Then I'm like, you know what? I'll just sit here, I'll chill, I'll watch Netflix, I'll have my beer. So that
Yeah.
book, Outwitting the Devil, is really about like the
Um,
devil is always whispering to you, like, bro, you're scared. It's not gonna happen. You tried something like that before. Just chill and be comfortable. The fear of poverty, like, man, you already don't have money, man. Keep your money close to you, and we know that money makes money, right? So keep that money close to you. So that has been a game changer. So I would recommend that to anyone. It doesn't matter male or female.
mm,
Psycho Cybernetics, another game changer. It's just about the re functioning of your mind and your brain, and the things that you say to yourself, the things that you actually think, the things that you actually visualize. Psycho Cybernetics is a classic. And Essentialism. Essentialism is a book about if something's not essential to your end goal, don't do it. And sometimes you have to actually, it's, on that journey of even not even entrepreneurship or trying to be a millionaire, on that journey of just being a better man yourself, sometimes it's going to be a lonely road because your friends from high school, college, even from work, a lot of people aren't on that same level. So doing things that's essential to your actual habits to get you to that better phase. And the more you actually focus on that, the more, funny enough, you end up socializing with more people. Like, damn, I don't have any high quality friends or people because you're not high quality yourself. So, oh man, my marriage is not being as great as I want to be. Oh, because maybe you're not the best husband that you can be. Therefore, you're not leveling up your wife to be the best wife, or vice versa. So man, I would say those three
mm,
is a great start, but I have
yeah.
plenty more. But man, those books are
It's-
classics.
all right. Added to my list. Don't you worry, mate. I've got one final closing question for you, and
Yeah,
I
man, for
typically
sure.
round up this show with this question. I can't
Yeah,
wait to
man.
hear your answer to this. You can take this which way you like,
Yeah.
personally, professionally, etc. But the idea and topic of success is something I'm really interested in. So, to Ra'id Ahmed, what does success mean to you?
Uh, Man, good question. In the business realm, I can't really say what success looks like yet because I haven't. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I haven't got there, but that's always the
Mm,
more you grind and grow, the more that dream gets better. But success for me is having your time and freedom for yourself. Success is to be able to do the things that you love to do, not because you have to, is because you want to.
mm,
To be able to do, because everyone talks about passion, to do the things that you're quote unquote passionate about, not because you're doing it because you want to turn that passion into a monetary gain. You're doing it because you already have the money, so therefore you already have that passion to do things that you actually want to do again because you have the time and flexibility to do it. But man, first and foremost, again, I always go back to this. Success to me is being a great husband, a great father, um, a great friend. For me, I'm Muslim, so my spirituality is connected to that. So getting closer to God. But man, I love people of all faiths, and even if you just believe in yourself, that's success. So if you're successful and believe in yourself, therefore your actions will follow. So yeah, that's in a nutshell, man. Success for me is definitely that, man. If you can believe in yourself and you're successful in actually believing that you can achieve those dreams and goals and be successful, then the action towards actually, making it materialize in it is going to be right in front of you. And it might not happen when you want to, but again, I'm a man of faith, so God put things in your way when he wants you to, when you're able to receive it. Just like my wife, at the time, I
Yeah.
was like, oh man, I want a good woman. But again, I wasn't a good man to receive that high caliber woman that
Right. Yeah.
I've got. Then a big quote is, man, lead by faith, not by sight. Leap and the net will appear. So
Yeah.
if you just go out and jump and just have faith in yourself, everything will fall into place, man. That's what I truly believe.
Love it. Well, I think that's a perfect way to end this show and
End
to
it
end this
off.
episode. That's an absolute mic drop of a finish, mate. I love it. Thank you very
Appreciate
much
it.
for talking all through that, mate. I've learned a lot from you just in this conversation. You got loads of
Bro,
great
that's awesome.
insights there. I think a lot of people can learn from you. So really appreciate you coming on, sharing your journey, opening up about certain things, and sharing some wisdom. Ra'id Ahmad,
Yep.
thank you very much.
I appreciate it, my brother. Have a good one.